Well, I'd always been aware of the dangers, or I thought I was. In fall camp last year, sustained a hit, and it was nothing out of the ordinary for a linebacker, a physical play, and just thought to myself after that, is this the route I'm going to go? How many times am I going to do this? For how long? And what are the real...
There used to be nothing more than agonizing moments for a professional athlete. All they had to think about was facing their retirement, that time when they come to the realization there are no more games, no more glory, just life without what they have known for most of their lives. But there is maybe something new players in the NFL are being forced to face, a retirement based not on the fact that their knees or their bodies are broken down, but the fact they're seeking to ensure they don't spend their later years as something close to a mental vegetable. Let's welcome to MidPoint Director of the Division of Medical Ethics at New York University's Langone Medical Center, Dr. Arthur Caplan. And we're also joined by the founding executive director of the Sports Legacy Institute, Chris Nowinski. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Chris, let me come to you first here. Should this retirement by a 24-year-old in completely excellent health football player send a chill up the NFL spine for their future?
Well, I think it should, because the reality is he's one of the first active players to actually do his homework on what the risks are of him having permanent brain damage and disease from playing the game. Very few of the other players are doing this, and if they were to research the same thing, they may come to the same conclusions.
But when you talk about them being intelligent enough to do this or smart enough to do this, a lot of these numbers have been out there for quite some time. And, of course, the discourse about the NFL and concussions has certainly been around for years now. What do you think? I mean, Borland says it happened in training camp and it was one moment. But it seems to me as if there's got to be something more than that, and that this sort of an idea has got to be spreading somehow.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think he may have picked it up through the media. I mean, the reality is our neuropathologist, who's now studied the brains of 79 former NFL players and 76 have had chronic traumatic encephalopathy. She's a Wisconsin grad, and she's been in Wisconsin magazines left and right. Who knows if he was first exposed to it there? But the reality is, you know, he got exposed to it. And to give you an analogy, my college roommate played 8 years in the NFL. And when I first wrote my book, Head Games, in 2006, he refused to read it because he didn't want to lose his edge on the field. He actively avoided that information. And I think the reality is most people are still actively avoiding it or listening to the talking points that claim there's another side of this argument, that nothing's proven yet and we should just sit and wait, which really isn't the case.
By the way, I want to say that I read Head Games, and it was a wonderful book. As a matter of fact, dug tremendously into a lot of the issues here. Now, let me get down to some of these things that are being said to Dr. Arthur Caplan. Dr. Caplan, I have in front of me now, appearing on the NFL Network, I have the quotes from Dr. Joseph Maroon, who advises the NFL on head, neck, and spine injury. He said the game has, quote, never been safer, unquote, and downplays the risk of CTE as a rare phenomenon and says that youth football is safer than riding a bike or a skateboard. How do you react?
Well, if something's horribly dangerous and you make it a little less horribly dangerous, I guess things are getting safer. But, you know, it's inherent in the nature of the game, as we've already heard. Head injury, injury to your body, injury to your joints. I don't see that there's much of a dispute about the fact that this is a pretty dangerous way to make a living. I think athletes do make decisions. Some of them say, I'm in it for the money. I understand the risk. They look at the information and say, they're paying me well. I don't have other things I could do that would get me that kind of money or letting me move my family out of poverty. So they may go in and say, I'm either going to stick my head in the sand and not worry about it, or I'm going to admit that it's risky and do it anyway.
But is this then just, Dr. Caplan, I have to interrupt you here, is this just, though, part of what has been the NFL's snow job on this? Because this is, if you think about this, and I saw actually Chris shake his head there a moment ago when I read these statements, but first to you, Dr. Caplan, isn't this just part of the cover-up here? The NFL does not want this to be seen as a truthful, factual individual here, or the CTEs. They want to knock these down.
Well, I think they do want to knock it down. It's for a slightly different reason, though. If they don't succeed in convincing the fans, and particularly parents of kids who might want to play football, that this is a safe sport or they can teach you how to tackle safely, which I tend to doubt, giving the mayhem of the game, or that there's a lot of other things that kids do like skateboarding that are dangerous. If they don't get on top of this, it isn't just that the athletes might sue them, it's that parents are going to say you're not going to play football. And that is a threat to the game, threat to the bonanza that is the NFL that they don't want. So yeah, I do think they want to hide the evidence or discount the evidence or throw up a smokescreen or do whatever they can. Remember, they didn't even tell us the truth about this until they got sued.
Well, let's do this then, Chris. As I noted, I saw you shake your head on this. So then what are parents supposed to do here? I guarantee you right now we're talking to millions of them at this point. And I can tell you one I know right offhand, close to me, who says they've got 2 kids getting ready to play football. What are they supposed to take from all this? When the NFL says, don't worry about it, it's fine, yet we have the doctors sitting out there saying you can become a vegetable at the later stages of your life.
Well, I think the NFL and their funded youth program, USA Football, have really proven, especially over the last week, as their comments have been dug into, that they are not telling the truth to parents. They're simply downplaying the risks. I mean, they're really taking the big tobacco playbook and making it about youth football, which is just a horrible, horrible thing to do. We believe firmly from a policy perspective, and as somebody who played football at Harvard, there's no reason to step on that field to play tackle football before high school. There's just no upside to it. So that's my number one recommendation to parents. And then we have to, the question is if you want to open up your child to a sport where the billionaires at the top of the game are just lying to you right now to get your kids to play so they can make some more money. That's just what's happening right now. That's just the reality.
Dr. Caplan, is it possible to properly protect the head of a human being and play professional football at the level it's played at now?
We don't know how to do that. Making a better helmet, you already have a helmet. It's called your skull. The problem is the brain bangs around inside that helmet, and that causes a lot of damage. We know that practice can be as risky as the games. We see the games and think that's what the injury is, but it can be cumulative. So we've got some work to do to come up with ways to get around the basic physics. And my view is, I don't know. I don't think it's really going to be possible.
Chris, I got about 30 seconds left. Are we going to look at this moment of Greg Borland retiring as a watershed moment in the history of pro football 30, 40 years down the road?
I think we will if other players decide to look into what he learned so they can learn for themselves. Because the reality is the risks are just so high right now that if they are good and they last 10 more years, they're going to be in big trouble 20 years later.
People are going to look at this, they're going to watch this, and they're going to say, don't worry about it, it's just football, it's just a game, and everybody decides what they want to do. Let me tell you, I've known some people who've gone through this, and it is distressing to watch as their lives continue. We'll continue to follow this story. Dr. Arthur Caplan, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Chris Nowinski, again, excellent book in Head Games. I thank you for joining us. I'll look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
Take care, gentlemen. They are the pioneers seeking to do something no human has ever before accomplished. All they have to do now is make certain they're not being scammed. Welcome the Martians. When we continue on MidPoint.